We got the story from Human Events.
Oh, this is awesome.
Libby Emmons writes, Ketanji Brown Jackson's DEI is showing in her dissent against nationwide injunctions. She writes, Justice Amy Coney Barrett delivered the opinion of the Supreme Court on Friday opposing the concept of nationwide injunctions, those decisions that a judge makes in one case, in one state, that then apply to countless standing and potential cases across the United States. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson offered a dissent, but in so doing, quote, is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent.
Marbury versus Madison, right? The very first case that established the notion of judicial review.
Yeah.
That was a case in which Chief Justice Marshall said that what Thomas Jefferson did was unlawful, but the court did not have the jurisdiction to force him to change his action.
Wow.
Right? Like the concept that the judicial branch cannot remedy every example of executive branch lawlessness has been in the Constitution since the notion of judicial review was enshrined in our law.
So
that's what that means.
Here's Amy Coney Barrett from the top rope. She basically says, KBJ here, you're so stupid, your opinion isn't worth addressing or wasting ink on refuting. She says, we will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary.
Yeah.
In other words, she very politely said, girl, you dumb.
How did you pass the bar? Insane.
Bar's easy.
How did she pass? Well, clearly.
Sorry to everybody who's failed the bar. You should have passed.
I gotta give this shout out to Jack Posobiec, who posted, this dissent is completely unreal. Let me read it for you.
Okay.
It says it's supposed. It's a joke. This is the joke dissent from Jackson, who writes, I dissent with unyielding indignation from the majority's acquiescence to the petitioner's counsel's outrageous inquiry into my morning repast during oral arguments. A question, how would your honor feel if you didn't have breakfast this morning? That is wholly devoid of legal relevance and constitutes an egregious affront to the dignity of this court. Such an impertinent question lacking any nexus to the multitudinous constitutional issues before us threatens to erode the independence of this tribunal by subjecting justices to trivial interrogatories better suited to a morning talk show than a court of law. In fact, I had already stated that I had eaten a full breakfast. I would hold that such questions do nothing to serve our democracy, and I admonish all litigants to refrain from such inquiries on pain of sanctions, preserving the sanctity of this court's proceedings from the specter of any breakfast-related frivolity.
More coherent legal reasoning than was present in Justice Jackson's dissent.
Now, hold on. Jack Posobiec said, this dissent is completely unreal.
Truth.
That's the truth. Mm-hmm. And he got fact-checked by Lead Stories that said his meme mocking Ketanji Brown Jackson was fake news.
He literally said it was. He said it was literally unreal.
He said it was unreal.
Unreal.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
What was her actual dissent? Is it concise enough?
How about this? No, it's not. She said, the Trump administration is both power-hungry and lawless.
What are you talking about, Ian?
The majority sees a power grab, but not by a presumably lawless executive choosing to act in a manner that flouts the plain text of the Constitution. Instead, the majority, the power-hungry actors are the district courts. District courts, however, have been acting with impunity under the Trump administration, both in this term and his first, by relentlessly blocking administrative prerogatives across the country based on the perceived merits of just one case. She basically says that Trump is power-hungry and lawless, and believes that gives her the authority and the district courts to have power over the executive branch, which is just plumb nuts.
And then it was Amy Coney Barrett that was like, this is just plumb nuts. And you're saying she was referencing the 220-year.
Yeah.
I mean, this paragraph right there is
brutal.
It is as insulting as insults could get for a Supreme Court
justice. They never do this. And the key thing to understand, this isn't just Justice Barrett. 6 justices signed this, right? And this doesn't happen. I mean, if you actually read...
At odds with the Constitution itself.
Justice, the reason they're being this sharp with her, which is normally the court tries to be at least collegial in public. The reason they're being this sharp with her is because her dissent is obnoxious. Like, there's a point in her dissent where she's like, using wait for it. I don't know if you saw this.
Oh no, full stop.
Yeah, full stop.
She actually wrote full stop.
Yeah.
Like she wrote a blog for a feminist zine. It's nuts.
And I mean, let's find the
entirely unprofessional.
Yeah,
While you're
right.
looking, just so you guys know, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson has spoken more words during oral argument than any other Supreme Court justice in the 22-23 term. According to an analysis by Adam Feldman, she spoke a total of 36,500 words, which is 12,000 more than the next most talkative justice, Elena Kagan, and almost 30,000 more words than the justice with the fewest words, Clarence Thomas. 30,000 more words.
Yeah, she's not a precise legal thinker. It's really that simple. I mean, you start with, I pulled up her dissent, and the first paragraph is this. I write separately to emphasize a key conceptual point. The court's decision to permit the executive to violate the Constitution with respect to anyone who has not yet sued is an existential threat to the rule of law.
Unbelievable.
That's just wrong.
Yes.
It's wrong, right?
Yes.
Like, the way that the judicial power works is it only extends to cases and controversies. This is a repudiation of the entire body of law, of the law of standing in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And it's the first paragraph of her dissent.
Where do I find the dissent? We're going to pull
So
it up.
I pulled it. I sent it to you over X.
Oh, okay.
But you have to scroll down. I don't know what page this is exactly, but it's the last. You have to scroll all the way down to the bottom because it's the last opinion, and it's at the beginning of it.
Look, I mean, it shouldn't be a shock. She refused or she says that she cannot identify what a woman is when she had her hearing. She specifically said, I'm not a biologist. She said, I can't identify what a woman is. She's ideologically possessed. It has her opinions have nothing to do
98.
with any of the actual, the what's it called?
So this is
what's being presented to the court.
her first paragraph, or which paragraph is it?
It's literally the first. It's the very first paragraph of the dissent.
I agree with every word of Justice Sotomayor's dissent. I write separately to emphasize a key conceptual point. The court's decision to permit the executive to violate the Constitution with respect to anyone who has not yet sued is an existential threat to the rule of law.
But you're saying that the court
that is judicial supremacy, because what that's saying is not the point of standing is to cabin the power of the court to cases and controversies.
I see. So if the executive violates the Constitution, then they will be charged and it will come to the court. The court itself doesn't jump in and stop them, is what you're saying.
The court doesn't go around looking for constitutional violations to remedy.
The presumption she's making is that we know before the court case happened that Trump violated the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. Right. But it's up to the legal system to decide that, and then the judge has to make an impartial decision.
And grant relief to the parties in question, not to the rule.
Not to non-parties.
But yes, but I would phrase it not to edict, not to declare that law is as we decide it for the nation. Laws are decided by the legislative, enforced by the executive, interpreted by the judges. What she's writing is that, no, before even hearing the case, we know and we can determine for the nation how they must operate.
I want to hear the rest of it. I know it's probably long-winded. I'll read it. She could check
it.
It's, what is it, 21 pages?
I don't want to hear that.
We don't have to read the whole thing, but we can continue reading like this first page.
Listen to this. Stated simply, what it means to have a system of government that is bounded by law is that everyone is constrained by law, no exceptions. And for that to actually happen, courts must have the power to order everyone, including the executive, to follow the law, full stop.
Unreal.
Except
Unreal.
that violates the law of the Constitution and passed by Congress
constraining
the jurisdiction of the court.
What is the legal definition of full stop? I'm not familiar with this one.
Not a technical.
It's like writing period and then putting a period.
No, it's not a technical.
It's not in the dictionary near like mens rea.
Full stop.
Right.
It's like old not phonograph.
It's feminist
It's the Supreme Court version of like.
Yeah,
it's when
this
they
is why
telegraph. It was like telegraph text.
I can only imagine what these discussions were like in conference where Justice Jackson's putting this out there. And the rest of the justices are like, what are you talking about? Like, have you read any of our standing opinions?
Will, have you ever had a conversation with Ian?
Wait, here. Fill me in on something.
Ouch.
What's the joke?
Ouch. I wouldn't say that about you, Ian.
Well, maybe it's my own
say
fault for
such.
bringing the ire, because I'm just thinking about, like, can she be fired? Can she be voted out?
Impeached.
She can be impeached? Literally, judges can be impeached for what exactly?
I think we should investigate her citizenship and denaturalize and deport.
I mean, if you can literally impeach a judge for going haywire, 50, I was telling you guys before the show, 50 years of this woman, and I don't even know her, but 50 years of this kind of piss poor dissent is bad. Is not
I mean,
good.
people should realize this is a real threat because this theory of judicial supremacy, this is the law in Israel. That's something I don't think most people understand. But like, that's actually.
So you're saying that Ketanji Brown Jackson is pro-Israel?
She's pro-Israeli.
She's pro-Israel.
Certainly.
So basically pro-Israel.
Yeah.
Everyone hear that? She's pro-Israel.
You're saying in Israel that the courts can arrest the president for
Courts can issue advisory opinions. They can reverse any governmental decision if they deem that decision to be unreasonable.
How's that defined?
However the court defines it.
So they're the most powerful entity in the country, the courts?
Under their current law, yes.
I heard that there was issues between Netanyahu and the courts where he was trying to disempower the courts, and there was
Yes. There's a huge debate.
This lady's crazy.
Yeah.
She says, in a constitutional republic such as ours, a federal court has the power to order the executive to follow the law, and it must. It is axiomatic. The Constitution of the United States and the statutes of the people's representatives have enacted govern in our system of government. She's literally saying we have power over the executive branch to do as we interpret.
Yeah,
Outside
unconstrained.
outside of the parties before us. She's literally like it's wild, but it's simply put, she is saying if we bang the gavel and order the nation to do it, it is so. She's literally just saying the Supreme Court dictates and you must.
Right. The Supreme Court is supreme to the Supreme. It's no longer a co-equal branches.
It is.
The branches are no longer co-equal.
How long-
Supreme Court, executive branch, and legislative branch.
How long do you think it's going to be until she puts out a dissent or whatever with hand clapping emojis in it?
This is something.
Oh wait, there's one right here. No, I'm kidding.
But it's actually, this is a terrible decision. It's not good that we have somebody on the court that is clearly has this little understanding of American constitutional law. Like, she has no business being on the court. But the good thing, I guess, from a conservative perspective, is she no longer has any ability to persuade any of the remaining justices of the court to join her on any opinion, right?
No. Did she ever?
She's insulted them.
Right. She's insulted them, and she's done so in a way that's really silly. Like, it's a very bad insult.
Well, I'm going to tell you why I love this, because one of the issues, let's go back to Texas v. Pennsylvania, 2020. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that one?
Let me pull it up. I'll probably remember it.
That was when Texas sued, citing original jurisdiction, saying Pennsylvania was in violation of the Constitution by altering the terms of their election outside of the state legislature.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court was like, oh, we don't want to get involved in that. Clarence Thomas and Alito were like, we need to answer this question. They are suing. It is incumbent upon us, the Supreme Court. They refused. So what I love here is the Supreme Court. What I want to see happen is them actually issue rulings like this. When Ketanji Brown Jackson tries to overstep, it's actually, let me put it this way. It's not that she can't persuade them. It's that she will persuade them in the other direction. She will dissuade.
Yes. She's the opposite of Kagan. Like, Kagan has historically been able to pull Roberts and Kavanaugh. Not Kavanaugh, but like Barrett now. She used to be able to pull like Kennedy, I think. And it was always because she was able to reason together with them under their premises. Like, this opinion from Jackson and the way that 6 justices were willing to basically call her an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, you don't understand constitutional
So
law.
It's going to be like, people are going to be like, hey, or the SCOTUS justices are going to be like, what is Jackson saying? And that's what I was thinking.
Right.
This.
Yeah. I mean, they might still come to the conclusion that they agree with Jackson on the outcome, but they don't think of her, they don't take her seriously as a legal reasoner.
Yeah.
And that's not good for a liberal justice in the dissent, in the minority.
No, especially considering the makeup of the court now with 6 justices that are generally, generally have good legal reasoning and are not ideologically possessed the same way.
Conservative justices are all very, very smart. That's something I'll say about every single one of them. They're all brilliant.
It is kind of dumb that it's like, did England do it? They didn't, then we can't. It's like, well,
I
mean, rights right here.
because that's the law, right?
I know, but it's
because
just
that's
like,
what the Judiciary Act says, and it's what the reason is because that's the tradition of equity and a lot of our law comes from England, right? Like, we imported it in the colonies, and it continued into the, and if like
Barrett writes, the universal injunction was conspicuously non-existent for most of our nation's history. Its absence from 18th and 19th century equity practice settles the question of judicial authority.
Wasn't the first one in like 1964 or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, and basically the respondents in this case basically were trying to say, well, there's this example of an aggregate piece of litigation, and the Barrett opinion is like, yeah, which became the modern class action, which is the point. Like, by ducking out of the class action, you create this circumstance where every plaintiff gets like, basically the government has to win every single time, and but they lose once and they lose, period. That's just not fair.
There's more.
Oh yeah, there is more.
The principal dissent focuses on conventional legal terrain like the Judiciary Act of 1789 and our cases on equity. Justice Jackson, however, chooses a startling line of attack that is tethered neither to these sources nor, frankly, to any doctrine whatsoever.
This is like that might be meaner than the other thing we said, because this is something, startling. Whenever I was saying this backstage, but if a lawyer or a judge calls your argument novel or innovative, they're insulting you.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. That's an insult.
Yeah.
That means that like you're coming up with something that's not grounded in the law. You're just coming up with your own thing, which is exactly what they're saying.
Innovation's great in technology. It's not so great in the law.
Not so great in the law.
Yeah.
Justice Jackson's position is difficult to pin down. I like how they're saying different ways. It's untethered to reality.
That's what it
I'm
says.
not even sure exactly what she's arguing, but to the extent we can make sense of it, it's
Here's the next line. Rhetoric aside, Justice Jackson's position is difficult to pin down. She might be arguing that universal injunctions are appropriate, even required, whenever the defendant is part of the executive branch. If so, her position goes far beyond the mainstream defense of universal injunctions. As best we can tell, though, her argument is more extreme still, because its logic does not depend on the entry of a universal injunction. Justice Jackson appears to believe that the reasoning behind any court order demands, quote, universal adherence, at least where the executive is concerned. In her law-declaring vision of the judicial function, a district court's opinion is not just persuasive, but has the legal force of a judgment. Wow. In other words, they are writing rather eloquently exactly what we were saying before, that Justice Jackson is basically saying, if the Supreme Court says, so shall it be.
No, it's not even that. She's Justice Jackson is saying, if any district court says
right.
to the White House, so shall it be.
And
right, and not
the
the judgment, right? Not the actual saying this person won, you are ordered to do X, Y, or Z. It is anything appearing in a district court opinion, which is not precedential, right? Because district courts don't make precedent.
So
anything appearing in a district court opinion is said, so shall that be as well.
Just for fun.
Real quick, sorry, just real quick. This whole section is literally just it's several pages of Justice Jackson is retarded.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Just for fun, I'm curious as to like how are the ways that you could imagine things going bad if Justice Jackson were correct?
If Justice Jackson were correct,
how would those
would no longer have a meaningful democracy?
Yeah.
Supreme Court would be the governing authority of the country.
The
entire judicial branch would be the governing authority of the country. Every single executive decision would be subject to immediate review, regardless of anybody was even injured. So this goes again. This is basically we get the Israeli system.
Well,
but there's there's the sovereign court and everybody below it.
But let's just take it beyond the. Let's not make it light. Let's say there would be no executive branch. It would
Still be it, but it would. Here's a good example.
It'd be performative.
So here's an example of something that could happen. President Trump moves some troops around and is preparing for war, and there's some news reports. On their own initiative, the Supreme Court issues an order saying the president must stop and return those troops here until we can review the potential military action.
Yes, or let's get that. You're being reasonable, Will.
Yeah.
At the utmost, what she's saying could be, upon any instance, for any reason, the Supreme Court can determine literally anything in this country, meaning your government would functionally be a judiciary with nothing else. Everything else is performative. The judges wouldn't wait for the executive to mount troops. The judges would order the president. They would say, upon fact and review of foreign affairs, we are hereby issuing an order that the president begin to amass troops on the eastern border of Ukraine, or the eastern border of Poland, to mount an offensive into Ukraine in defense, and then the president must do it. And then at the local level, there is no state legislator or city council, only judges. So then when a law is to be passed, The judges will decide whether it is or is not. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.